Eric Martin, Lewis Clark State College. Here we are with History 102, and it is time to set up the next chapter. That chapter is Chapter 25, World War II and Mass Killing. Not the happiest topic you could think of, but an important one, arguably the defining feature of the 20th century. Now, the material for this week, it's a little bit different. I want to explain this just a little bit. There's not a Bridging World History video. The creators of Bridging World History attempted to combine World War I and World War II together into that video they describe as global conflict. And I think that their assumption is that we all understand World War I and all understand World War II, and so they're going to take a different angle on things. And I'm not sure that we do all understand what happened. So, what I've done for this week is I've given you two different kinds of videos. One of them is from a series called The World, A Television History. It's an older series. I used to use it back on videotape. I found it on YouTube. I hope it stays up. It's a kind of what you would think of as a standard history of World War II, and it's pretty good. So I want y'all to take a look at that to get the broad context. And then I've got a second video in there. It's an older BBC video called Hitler's Rise to Power. And I want y'all to look at that. And the very first thing I want you to do in this week's discussion boards is to consider the two different interpretations of Hitler's rise to power provided by those videos, or decide whether or not there's two different interpretations. What are the factors at play that make Hitler's rise to power possible? Now, I want to say a couple of things before I start talking about the documents in worlds of history, because Hitler is one of those sketchy topics. When I was an undergraduate, my history advisor had a complete and total ban on all Hitler papers. I didn't understand it. I now also have the same ban, okay? Because there's a lot of very bad stuff out there. And by the time students find the good stuff, it's too late. And here's the other thing, as many of you probably know, in our minds, the conceptualization of Hitler and the Nazis is so evil, right? Evil. And so when we sit down to attempt to explain what happened in the 1930s and 1940s, how did everything get so crazy? Well, there's this explanation, right, that goes something like this. Well, there was this very evil but charismatic man named Hitler, and he was able to get all these people to follow him, and they did all these crazy things. That explanation is way too simple, right? That explanation is way too simple. The rise of the Nazis, the rise of the fascists, the rise of Hitler, all have to be contextualized within broader global movements going on at the time. So you can spin the question around and you can ask something like this. Does Hitler, the individual, cause the rise of the Nazi Party and of the fascist movement? Or does the fascist movement cause the rise of the Nazi Party and Hitler? And if your answer is it's number two, and that's the right answer, then you got to ask another question. Well, all right, where did all that fascist stuff come from? And then it becomes different, right? Then it becomes wider responsibility than just kind of one crazy guy. So anyway, that's what I want you to be thinking about while you're looking at these videos. What are the global forces at play that are making the conditions ripe for the rise of Hitler? Okay. Now, the other thing that we're going to have to do, of course, is to talk about our documents. Now, the first 3 documents out of Chapter 25 are all primary sources specifically dealing with the Holocaust. I want you to think about, why did the Holocaust occur and how did it occur? All right? And I want you to use those 3 documents, discuss the details of the documents, use Kevin Riley's Thinking Historically if you need some extra stuff to talk about. But how and why did the Holocaust occur? And then there's this piece by Timothy Snyder called The Holocaust, the Ignored Reality. And it is really good. What are his main points? What are his main points about why is it that we associate the Holocaust with the Western Jews? All right? Why is it that we associate the Holocaust with the Western Jews? And according to that author, according to Timothy Snyder, what else happened? And why don't we know about it? Okay. Then, we've got this piece by Dr. Robert Wilson on the rape of Nanking. I encourage you, if you don't know anything about the rape of Nanking, to do some additional research on it. I would not let my kids around the computer while I did the research on it, and I would prepare myself. I used to do more in this class with the rape of Nanking, but man, I traumatizing myself every semester. I just had to stop. So I'm going to encourage you to just look it up, find out what it's about, read this article, find out what he said it was about, and if you got the stomach for it, do an image search on the rape of Nanking. But I'm warning you right now, it's don't let your kids in the room. But you know, sometimes there's this really terrible side of humanity that winds up, you know, bubbling forth onto the pages of history. And the question becomes, how could something like this happen? Okay, and again, not asking for justification, but asking, how is it that one group of human beings come to believe that it's okay to do something like this to another group of human beings? And, you know, time frame, more or less the same as what's happening in Europe during the Holocaust. And then our final 2 documents. One of them is President Truman's announcement about the dropping of the atomic bomb. And then you've got a really interesting document by Akihiro Takahashi, who was a survivor of Hiroshima. I encourage you to look him up online and watch some of the YouTube videos of him. He's a really interesting character who provides a first-hand account of what it was like to be there when a nuclear weapon got dropped on your town. And as you can imagine, we don't have a whole lot of sources like that. Now, you know, it's a lot of gruesome stuff for this week. But again, I think it's important because it's important for us to get a sense about, why would people do things like this to each other? How do people come to the point of doing these kinds of things to each other. And then the other thing that, always, kind of bothers me when I think about this stuff is it didn't occur that long ago. The 1930s, the 1940s, from a historical point of view, are not that long ago. It's less than 100 years. It's not like this stuff happened 1,000 years ago. And we can say, humans don't act like that anymore. That's just a few generations. So it seems like that's a really important reason to study this kind of thing, so that we can maybe get some kind of a glimpse into the human condition and what it is that would cause people to do something like this, and maybe how we can recognize it in the contemporary world. So, and then also this whole idea about trying to understand the 20th century. As I said at the beginning of the video here, I can easily imagine an argument that what's the defining characteristic of the 20th century, or what makes the 20th century new. And it's like, wow, this kind of stuff makes it kind of new. Not entirely new, right? Those of y'all who had 101, you guys know all about the Mongols, and we all had the atrocities from colonialism, just a couple of weeks ago. But still, it's kind of mass killing's a big deal. Okay. You don't have that many more discussion boards left, so focus on them. Make them good. Make them detailed. Go through all the documents. And if you have issues that you need to talk with me about, email me, call me, drop by the office, and above all, enjoy your historical studies, and I'll see you next time.